everyone, my name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all. Today we are going to be discussing the concept of play having the right of way in BDSM. I was introduced to this concept while I was on a kinky camping trip with some of my friends. Every year, our local TNG group, that is a group of kinksters who are 18 to 35, it stands for the next generation, they organize this camping trip, and it's this big whole weekend of people camping and doing kinky stuff and organizing play, and it's a lot of fun. And while I was there, one of the people introduced this concept of play having the right of way. And when I heard it, it just made so much sense. And regardless of if you're new to BDSM, if you've never been to a dungeon before, or you're a regular already in your local community, I think this is a really important concept to learn, because it is very difficult when we are sharing public spaces with others who maybe have different limits, different boundaries, and different desires in their play, to make sure that everybody feels like they are able to adequately use this space in the way that they want to, that they feel comfortable, and that the people doing scenes are not interfering with anybody else's enjoyment of the space and the people in the space are not trying to impose their own boundaries on top of somebody else's scene. It's a very complicated situation anytime you are sharing space where there's so much potential for diversity, and I think that is where this concept of play has the right of way comes in. And basically the way that this concept works is, if there is a person who is actively engaging in a BDSM scene, so long as it is not against the rules of the space, that has priority. So that means if something is making you feel uncomfortable, if it is going beyond your own personal limits, if you disagree with something that's happening in the scene, play has the right of way. The play takes priority, and it is your job as a person witnessing that scene to remove yourself from that situation. And I think the logic of it kind of works in that you are a spectator to the scene, you are not a participant in it. So if you are coming from the outside, it's not really up to you to control how or if the scene happens. Again, so long as it's not breaking the rules of the space, it is up to the space to be able to police that. And if the scene you're witnessing is making you upset, rather than trying to stop somebody else's scene, it's up to you to be able to remove yourself. And that can mean maybe going to a different private area, maybe that means going to the aftercare room for a little bit by yourself, maybe you step outside, or maybe you leave the event altogether, or maybe you just need to be able to socialize quietly with some friends for a little while before you feel like you're ready to go back to the play space. Or maybe you just wait until they're done with the scene and then you continue on with whatever it was that you're doing. I think it's really important to remember that you always have your own agency when it comes to interacting in BDSM spaces. So that's why it's so important to reinforce that if something makes you uncomfortable, you have the power to remove yourself from that situation. And especially because all of us have different boundaries and different limits in BDSM. If it was the witness or the person who is watching the scene has the right of way, then that means potentially anybody could go up to the scene and say, hey, this makes me uncomfortable, stop. And that could be anything. And so I have friends who have limits around things like blindfolds and gags. I know people who are triggered by certain colors and smells or different words. I know people who have limits around certain types of scenes or find it very uncomfortable to watch things like pet play or DDLG. I know it makes some people really uncomfortable to see heavy masochistic scenes, or to see hook pull suspensions, or to see blood. And it's not up to the people witnessing who are not participating in the scene to dictate what the limits of the scene are. Now, I know it's really difficult if you're going to a dungeon for the first time, or maybe you go there regularly and it's kind of a small space and there's not really a place to get away from the play, or maybe you're not allowed to leave and come back in, to feel like you're being forced to leave an event because something there is making you uncomfortable. I totally get that, and I know it is a really hard decision to feel like you might have to leave a space because something somebody else did has pushed you out. I think in these situations, it is also important to remember, if something does make you uncomfortable, you sort of have two options. One is to double check with the DMs, and especially if you're wondering if something has been pre-negotiated with the space it's happening in, or just to make sure it is part of the protocol and the rules and it is actually allowed in that space, talk to the DM. It's up to the dungeon monitors and it's up to the people who are running the event to control what is going on in their space, not yours. So if something is uncomfortable to you, go up to them, talk to them about it, make sure that it meets with all of the space's rules if you want to, and then maybe you can figure out something where, hey, maybe they have another event you can go to later on this week where that type of play isn't allowed because this is a heavy play party and that one is kind of more of a lighter or an intro party, and maybe they'd be able to help you out either with a discounted ticket or a refund or something like that to make sure that your time and your space of going to this dungeon isn't wasted and you can transfer it to an event where you would feel more comfortable engaging in the space. You can also talk to the people after the scene is done. I know a lot of people who are heavy players, particularly people who play with a lot of role play, that for some people can be very visceral to watch. So people who do like blasphemy play, people who do dark DDLG or dark age play scenes, people who do sexual pet play scenes. I know a lot of them do offer themselves after a scene to be available for spectators to talk to them to make sure that everybody is okay and kind of almost provide like a group aftercare. Not everybody follows this philosophy, but if something comes up and you have a lot of feelings after the scene and you still happen to stick around, wait until they're done tearing down the scene, wait until their aftercare is done, and then maybe think about approaching them afterwards and just maybe talking to them a little bit about what happened and what made you not feel super great about the scene, and maybe you'll feel a little bit better about it afterwards. Now, a key part of all of this as well is you need to be aware of the space that you're entering. Like I mentioned before, different scenes, different parties have their own themes to them and they have their own levels of play to them. It's a little bit unfair to expect when you are going into the heavy bondage night that you are going to be able to avoid seeing somebody in like a body bag or seeing somebody, you know, in a gimp suit or something like that. It's probably going to happen. And if you know there are things that are going to be upsetting to you, that are going to be triggering for you, make sure you really do pay attention to event descriptions and to the overall rules of the space that you're going to, so that way you make sure you are ending up in a situation that's going to be as comfortable for you as possible. Now, this also extends into don't interrupt people's scenes. I know I have a lot of friends, and I have experienced personally myself, people who don't really understand kind of the typical bubble that exists around BDSM scenes and with things that happen in dungeons. Like if somebody is throwing a whip in like the designated whip area, don't walk directly behind them. Don't interrupt somebody's scene to tell them how great they're doing. Don't gawk at the person who's dangling in a suspension mid-air and go, "Wow, that's so cool." If somebody's doing a verbal humiliation play scene, don't join in unless somebody has asked you to join in. Really, it's just the best way I could think of describing this is every individual scene has sort of a bubble around it. And in some spaces you'll go to, they're even marked off with tape where people who are to spectate are allowed to be and where they are not allowed to be. And just make sure you are staying aware of the spaces. Don't interrupt scenes. If you have anything that you want to say to somebody who is just in the scene, maybe you really loved it, maybe you're interested in doing that kind of play yourself, or again, maybe it was something that you find kind of disturbing and you're having some trouble processing, talk to them after the scene is over, after they've cleaned up and after they have done their aftercare, because their scene, their play that they have already coordinated with another person takes priority. If you have any other questions about how to be respectful in BDSM spaces and how to conduct yourself and follow like proper BDSM etiquette, links down below to some of my other videos where I've talked about my first experience at a dungeon, what to experience at dungeons, etiquette, survival tips for people who are introverted, common pitfalls. All of that good stuff will be down in the description box below, so please check that out. If you have any additional questions, please let me know down in the comment section below. I am always happy to help out. If you like this video and you want to see more from me, best thing to do is to subscribe. I make videos twice a week about all kinds of fun BDSM and BDSM related topics. And if you really like my work and you want to support this channel, the best place to do that is on Patreon. That is what makes these videos possible. That is what allows me to get better filming equipment, film more videos, and I'm also able to offer you guys exclusive photo shoots and videos, all sorts of fun perks. So do check that out if you haven't already. Link to that will be down below. And if you already support, thank you so much. It is so appreciated. And until I see you guys next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.